Hi, welcome back to the second part of tonight's show where John, Dave and myself are going to look forward to our first tour of the Pro 14 down to South Africa and of course all the other weekends fixtures. So boys, we take on the Southern Kings in Port Elizabeth. The Kings won 6 of their 15 games in the Super 18 as it was.
Mostly away from home.
Yeah, they won 4 of their matches away from home and only 2 at home.
Yeah.
Two from 7 I think it was at home, which I was surprised at. And but I would say that the quality of their victories were over some of the weaker teams. Like they beat the Rebels and the Sharks, the Sunwolves, the Waratahs, Jaguars and the Bulls.
Yes, they only really beat the Australians.
The Australians and a couple of derbies.
Well, the Sharks, a pretty good team, in fairness. But outside of that, I remember the weekend of the Waratahs game because I have relations over that way, and I was slagging them, saying, if you don't beat these lads, these are the whipping boys of your Super Rugby. And then I was kind of too embarrassed to slag them afterwards because they didn't manage to beat them. But it shows what disarray the Waratahs are in. But the Kings have also lost a lot of players since they've done all those heroics. They're at home in Port Elizabeth. They'd probably be home licking their wounds after two beatings. So I would see that for many reasons as the easier of the 2 games, because A, it's at sea level, B, it's at the technically weaker of the 2 teams, and we get them first as well, so they'll be licking their wounds a bit from coming back from Europe, and they have all the travel hassles that we have. Just they're going home and we're going away.
Ironically, their best player from their Super Rugby campaign is playing for the Cheetahs now in Manpimpi, who scored the same number of tries as James Lowe did. So he's obviously got.
It's great going forward.
Yeah.
But the big hassle for us obviously is what players we're going to have. We were only taking 28 across and 12 coaches, so there's going to be a lot of guys left behind who are simmering and bubbling under and ready to take the reins against Edinburgh, hopefully, because there'll be a lot of tired bodies getting back from South Africa after 2 games. If we're lucky and we don't get too many injuries, we should be fine. And also, there's a couple of players I think there are 3 players that they're waiting on fitness tests tomorrow. Reid, McFadden.
That must be the reason why they're not announcing
And
the
Carberry.
squad until tomorrow, until Tuesday.
They're literally going to announce it.
As they're getting on the bus to go to the airport, I'd imagine.
Well, this episode won't be airing, so you'll all be looking at this going, "Oh, you Aegis, did you not? No, he wasn't going to make it, or he was." But if it works out really well, and we have Carberry and McFadden available to us, we seem to have been lucky getting Brian Byrne seems to be fit again. Jordy Murphy's ready to go, and Peter Dooley significantly is going to round out the depth at prop. So if we bring Dooley and both Byrne brothers, we could have four Burns in the 28 man squad.
Be on fire.
We'd be on fire, burning.
We're not going to have Levy.
We're not going to have Levy.
Carney.
We're not going to have Rob Carney. We're
Jamie
going to have
Heaslip.
2 Carneys.
No. Any of the Lions.
Any of the Lions.
Ringrose.
Ringrose, of course.
I'm going to keep naming these as you come out as you're about to say them.
Fardy,
that's
Toner.
right, and Toner.
So there's quite a lot.
I think we're quite down to bare bones there.
It depends. There's a few. Like you still have Keane Healy, Sean Cronin, Michael Bent, James Ryan, Ross Maloney, Reese Ruddock, Van der Fleer, Conan, McGrath, Byrne, Larmer, Nasiwa, O'Loughlin, Adam Byrne, Dave Carney. Hopefully, that's a reasonably decent start in 15.
It's even better if you drop Ross Maloney and put in Ian Nagel.
If we get all of them, Ross Maloney, Ian Nagel, Mick Carney, they're all kind of who is better than who. Put Mick Carney in there or Ian Nagel. They may all travel. Who knows?
That's going to be the tricky one. Actually, is
Which of the 4 you leave at home?
Yeah, I think
If
so.
indeed you do.
Yeah.
Well, the thinking seems to be that Reese Ruddock could fill in the second row if we were short. So why
Certainly
waste
did
an
it last
extra
year.
squad place?
But one of the things that interests me when Leo Cullen was giving his press conference was, like, it's all obviously brand new to them, how this is going to work. But he was kind of saying, well, we're not really sure what we're going to do with the guys that are left behind. Who are they going to train with? What are they going to do for the guts of 2.5 weeks or whatever it is? Sorry, it's not 2 weeks. It's just under 2 weeks,
Yeah.
isn't it?
But I
But-
suppose. Go on.
Sorry, yeah, and so like I think I just read today that they're going to train with the academy, which obviously is just really, tipping over.
Mm.
It's not really
It's not live scrummaging
it's not like-
sessions
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's going
it's
to
gonna-
be.
It is. It's going
It's
to be
gonna be tricky.
It's a new. It's undiscovered territory for us. I mean, it's uncharted territory. I mean, we are only bringing 12 staff,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot less than is the normal match day.
Well, that means they're going to have to
Cadre,
leave
you know?
some coaches at home. And,
So there will be a lot of guys left at home.
Mm.
I noticed during the week, last week, that the squad was working with some of the other coaches, some of the what would we consider first team coaches. They're working with the development officers and stuff like that. So maybe they've been brought into the whole setup early so they can get used to.
I'd say there's a clatter of sub-academy guys
Yeah.
that are going to be
Yeah.
getting plenty of experience training with the big boys.
But
And I'd say there's going to be
I think if Leinster don't call up the Midlands region development squad strength and conditioning guy, they're losing out in a trick. Isn't that right, David?
well, I'd say there's a strategy there to get guys ready to bubble on Edinburgh. There'll be a lot of guys to come back. Like, okay, maybe the not all of the Lions are coming back for Edinburgh, but you'd see the like of Jack McGrath coming back. You'd see hopefully Heaslip coming back. There'll be a lot of guys. I think Leo said it a few weeks ago that there's a lot of guys that might have started in round 4, but they can't because
Yes.
round 4 is in South Africa.
Yeah.
So they'll be all teeing up for the Edinburgh game. So I'd say anybody who's any kind of a knock in South Africa will be rested for Edinburgh,
Oh,
and
absolutely,
maybe
yeah.
full bore for Munster then and into the Champions Cup
Yeah.
would be the thinking.
I'm sure they have something organised.
So they have to have
Ticking
something
over.
to,
I mean,
to get them
these
going.
things, they're not
exactly.
idiots.
But it was because they had such a limited time from when it was
Yeah,
announced
no.
and the fixtures were. It was difficult to source 40 return tickets.
They're actually
Going out.
going in two different
Batches.
directions.
Yeah.
Some are
Paris
going
and
through
London.
Paris and some are going through London. So that's not exactly good logistics.
I would say. Well, I know, but
I think
it's
it
a
needs
short-term
must,
nature.
you know?
Yeah, they couldn't get. They couldn't
Like
get.
they're all going out on Tuesday. They're trying to get out on Tuesday. Some are going out. Some I think went out today.
They couldn't get 28 business class or above tickets on one flight. It's as simple as that.
Well, I
And
think
that's how you have with guys like that.
I
You
think-
couldn't. You couldn't fit James Ryan and Devin Toner.
I,
or not Devin
I
Toner,
think
but
they're trying
into
to
economy
get
class
the
seats.
players to go together and then putting the coaches
on
on whatever way that they're going to make up the rest.
But if you think about it, the guys like the league were supposed to have a sponsor teed up to take care of all this, and I don't think they have. I think that's what the problem is. I think there was supposed to be like Turkish Airlines or
An airline sponsor.
an airline pulling that out of thin air, but so Turkish Airlines actually fly via
Istanbul.
Istanbul and also Dubai down to South Africa. So I think the plan was to get somebody, an airline, to take everybody out on a charter or as part of sponsorship, something like that. And because they couldn't tee it up quite, because we're trying to keep a lot of balls in the air, they were doing a lot of juggling, getting this organised. So I don't think that quite worked out for the league, but I think the league still have to pay for the guys to go out. They
Yeah,
just
only 40 then.
they're only paying for 40.
I'd say now there'll be a very interesting meeting in RFU headquarters in June when all the 4 provincial teams come together to share their experiences, because it'll have to be. I mean, lessons learned for next season are very, very important.
But the thing is that the players seem exceptionally enthusiastic for it. The
Absolutely.
younger
Oh,
guys.
yeah.
Why wouldn't
Like,
you be?
I know it's not, but like I think it was either Conan or Levy was interviewed this during the weekend, and I think it was Conan, and he said, "Look, this is work. This isn't a holiday." But I think the fact that they're getting to go down. I mean, even Driscoll said he only got to play in South Africa twice.
Yeah.
Someone as well travelled and played rugby all over the world as like he did. He said he only travelled there with the Irish team in 04 and the Lions in 09.
Not everyone's going to get to tour to South Africa or to the Southern Hemisphere,
But
with,
also
with Ireland or the Lions. So getting to do it with Leinster is a major plus.
But you're also on the very first Pro 14 tour to South Africa
Yeah.
from any province or
Yeah.
any team. In fact, Zebre are going in, but they're only going for a week. So we're the first to play 2 games in, and if you're only, you said it yourself about Brian O'Driscoll only been there twice. It's very, very few people actually from here actually ever get to. It's going to change now, obviously. But to be in the first wave of that is going to be something historic, and it's
Yeah.
going to go down.
But
John Robbie's looking forward to it anyway, reading his columns.
Yeah, well,
But
somebody's going to be in a pub quiz in 40 years' time, and it'll be asked about who was the first
I guess
team to
one
tours
thing
it
that
over.
it will benefit, like if you look at, say,
from the Northern Hemisphere.
as much as we don't like to admit it, the Pro 12 is there for a kind of a specific purpose. It's to give game time and to develop young players to essentially go on and represent Ireland. That's the IRFU's cost benefit from the being participants in the Pro 14. And one thing that it will do, it'll give those younger kids an opportunity to go and tour in South Africa, to get used to playing down there.
Yeah.
And if there's if South Africa get awarded the World Cup instead of Ireland, that those players will be, or even if it's the next one goes to South Africa after the one that's in Ireland, it'll give those players the opportunity to get used to how it feels to play down in South Africa, get used to touring, and to, so that it's not all of a sudden just like, oh, we've got to go. I heard a great story going back now 20 odd years ago when I think Neil Francis was chatting to somebody just prior to the 95 Rugby World Cup. I think it was Simon Poitevin said to him, so where did you go for your altitude training? And he said, well, actually, at Lone. He says, where's that? 3 feet below sea level.
Yeah. Well, it's not quite as chaotic.
The rest of the squad went somewhere else. They just told Fran.
Maybe so, yeah.
Anyway, who else is going to benefit from this tour that we're doing as well? All the other provinces are going to be looking at it, and the advantage for them is they get to see what the mistakes are that we make logistically and everything like that. But the upside of it for us is we get to play these guys when they're still bedding in. Yeah. So if we can possibly go there and get a pair of victories of any description, especially the one in the high felt, I think it's going to stand as well in the league, where other teams might have to do it in April or something.
Maybe the weather is a little bit cooler now, perhaps, than it might be in.
It's ramping up. It might be hotter in February or so. Yeah.
The other side, the other thing is as well. Aren't we basing ourselves in Johannesburg?
I think so. Yes.
Isn't that what I said? Which is seems to be a sensible.
They flying to Cape Town first?
Cape
Town's only an hour from Port Elizabeth.
They're going to stay at altitude anyway.
Yeah.
Which seems to be more sensible than what
I think they're flying into Cape Town.
Yeah.
And then Port Elizabeth's only an hour.
Yeah. So they're staying up on the veldt rather than down.
I think they're going to Johannesburg straight away,
and
they're going to stay. The original plan was to go to Cape Town, but they're actually going to stay up in Johannesburg now.
Should we find out when they get there?
Find out soon.
I hope their new videographer is following them around, because it'd be quite an interesting insight.
And the Leinster branch appointed a new
marketing
manager, which hopefully he'll be.
God bless him and all who sail in him.
Well, hopefully he
have
will.
A few new ideas.
Exactly, yeah, because like the club does need it, and
it needs refreshing.
Yeah,
I mean, Conor Hanratty did a really good job, but it came to a point where that had to be changed. Keir Kenny did a really good job. It came to a point where that had to be changed. Paul Dermody was there for a couple of years. That has to change. You need to keep changing the message, otherwise it just becomes background noise. So hopefully, I wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the other fixtures of the weekend, I suppose the one that sort of jumps out for me is that I'm looking forward to is the Ulster against the Scarlets game.
Yeah, because we were asking all those questions in the first part about Ulster. How good actually are they? We'll soon find out.
Yeah,
because Scarlets will test them.
They'll show them. Where is that game?
It's in Ravenhill.
Okay. Well, that's some comfort for.
Not much. Scarlets went and won the Pro 12 last year the hard way, so I wouldn't say they'd be too scared of. They don't even have to change their currency, John. They won't even have to worry about roaming charges.
That's very true, Dave. Very true. Yeah. Plus,
they can WhatsApp and tweet all they like with their Snapchats.
That was some achievement, beating Leinster and Munster away to win the final.
I said at the time, I think that's the hardest won Pro 12.
Yeah, for sure.
Or Celtic League.
Hats off to them.
Yeah.
Hats off.
We spoke briefly about Cockerell getting off to a good start. It looks like it's going to continue. They play Treviso at home.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise me.
Mark that down in the win column, all right?
Yeah, never underestimate the ability of Scottish rugby. This is what Cockerell has to learn about Scottish rugby.
That's true.
This might be his first lesson.
Like even going back to the Gavin Hastings missing the penalty against England to win the Grand Slam in front of the sticks.
Treviso actually have been very unfortunate this year with the results.
They're there and thereabouts,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
They were
yeah.
only 7 points
Yeah.
off Ulster at the weekend.
Wouldn't take much for them to. If Edinburgh are slightly off and they play well, anything could happen. And that because that's how Treviso have a history of targeting certain games.
Munster gave them a fair doing though, didn't they?
They
They
did,
took
yeah,
the foot
yeah.
off the pedal after 50 minutes or something, but they beat them 35-11 or something. I can't remember the score, but last week they gave them a good seeing too.
I think it was 21-14.
Was it?
Yeah.
No, that was Ulster.
So who did you say?
Munster
Oh, sorry.
in week 1.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think they only scored 4
Yeah.
points or something.
5.
5 points in the second
There
half.
you go.
But Ulster only scored
4
6
points.
or 7 points in the second half themselves.
Mm.
But they had the job as well done at
Yeah.
that stage.
One match I'm actually looking forward to seeing how it pans out is the Dragons against Connacht. I think.
Another match you're looking forward
Well,
to
it
seeing
is.
how.
I'm telling you, because I think this one is going to sort of see where Connacht lie in the whole scheme of things. If they are beaten over in Dragons, then
It's pretty bad.
you know
for
it's
them.
going to be another bottom feeder season. If they win, then you might think, well,
They've
they're
launched
kind
off.
of trying to move from a. Okay, they won it a couple of years ago, but maybe that was just a blip. Are they going to move from a mid-table team to, or sort of say the have-nots into the haves
Yeah,
part of the league?
I'm just saying, it'd be interesting to see that. It'd be interesting to see where Dragons are, how they're progressing. And of course, for so long, Connacht's go-to guy, and most of their plays were based around give Birch the ball, if you remember.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how he fares coming up against his former province.
Yeah.
And Cardiff, your old team, John, take on
I'm
Glasgow.
going to get this for years to come. I said once that they were a coming team about 18 months ago.
I think Glasgow will
It's
beat
turned
Cardiff
into a...
quite comfortably. Where's the game?
It's in Cardiff.
Very comfortably.
Yeah. Not quite as comfortably as if it was in Scotstoun. But,
Well, Glasgow do have one advantage over over a significant number of the teams who go and play in Cardiff.
they have fake grass.
They have fake grass of their own, so it's no. They don't. There's no culture shock to overcome, for want of
Yeah.
a better phrase.
Ospreys take on Munster. We used to say there was always a bit of niggling in this game.
Yeah, it's-
Has it gone out of it a bit?
It's not so much that the niggle has gone out of it; it's the ability of Ospreys to actually catch anyone from Munster to have a bit of niggle with has diminished. The teams have gone in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Ospreys, after having a bad year or two 2 years ago, had kind of come back with a decent enough. They seem to be, but they've started this year very poorly. Now, whether the sight of those red jerseys in front of them will put them back on track, who's to say? But
Good for us if it did.
I think Munster are probably too good for Ospreys.
It's in Australia though.
It is, yeah.
I think Munster are just too good for them.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Ospreys probably, I think I looked at it last week. I think Ospreys had won like 5 games out of the last 15, something like that. And that they were beaten at the weekend as
They
well.
tailed off the end of last season.
Yeah,
and that
something
kinda-
terrible. I mean, do you remember the match against Leinster towards the end? I think you actually were at it, John.
Was.
And like Dan
They
Bigger
didn't
was
lose it by
concussed.
much.
No,
Mm,
but Dan
yeah.
Bigger was concussed. They kept him on the pitch when clearly
missed a kick to
he
win the
missed a
game.
kick to win the game.
Yeah.
And whoever was in charge there should have taken him off and got somebody else on.
But the thing about Dan Bigger and Ospreys, he's such an important player for them. And the whole news about him leaving
I was kind
Well,
of
if-
hoping that Saints get relegated just to
Yeah.
screw them.
will really, really upset. I mean, just the whole psyche of the team, you know, because he's the guy that the entire team is really based around. Dan Bigger.
The guy is, I think he's barely 30. He's 200 caps.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
Is he
you know.
30? I thought he was only young.
He,
I thought he was younger than that.
he might not be. He might be 28, 29. I don't think he is quite 30.
but he's
Like,
played
he's
an awful
very-
lot of rugby for a young
He's
guy. Yeah,
very young to have played to have 200 caps. You know, he really is. And you know, especially seeing as he has played for Wales. I know he didn't play for Wales originally. He took him a while to get into the Welsh team, but he's been in there for a while now. So to have 200 Ospreys caps in addition to whatever Welsh caps he has is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And he was a Lions tourist this
he's a
time.
good player. He's a good player.
He's a good player, and I think he'll suit the league in England. He's
Yeah.
that kind of a steady kind of a player that will suit an English
Bit of
AP
physicality
team.
about him as well.
And he's tough as old boots.
Actually,
So-
see one of our old boys, Dom.
Yeah, a lot of
Ryan,
trouble over that. Yeah,
He
He,
was
he got a bit of a whack in the
HIA'd,
head.
yeah.
But
or
they didn't
he
take him off.
wasn't.
He should have been. Yeah.
Yeah, because did they bring in a new saliva test or
They
something?
did, yeah. Well,
Um,
I think it's PR, is it?
I don't know. I know nothing about it. So I'm gonna have to do some reading. But because they trumpeted at the beginning of the season, but it doesn't see, there's already a club being investigated. So shall we see what happens anyway?
Yeah. Well, the Cheetahs host Mick Bradley's Zebre to possibly get their first Pro 14 victory of the campaign.
I don't think it'll be the first Zebre that's been slaughtered by a cheetah on the high veld.
Very good, Dave. Very good.
Yeah, I've been waiting all week to do that one.
Yeah, well, it's two bottom feeders against each other, so
Do never, if you ever meet anyone from Bloemfontein or the Orange Free State, never describe cheetahs as bottom feeders. They will rip you a new one. I swear to God.
I can see random South Africans just coming up to me on the street and
honestly.
dig now this week.
Never, unless they're Brighton back.
I'm meeting a South African chap tomorrow night, so I'll try it out on him. He's not that much into rugby, so. But it is in terms of the league so far. They're both bottom
they're both
feeders.
playing very
They're
poorly.
both on the bottom of the league, you know. So
In O'Driscoll's interview, he actually mentioned in that match in 04 when they played, I think they played a test in Bloemfontein, and he said that they were getting the old slitting the throat gestures from a lot of the fans.
well, Zebre have a point.
They got a losing bonus point.
Cheetahs don't. So Zebre are actually doing better in the league than
I can
Cheetahs.
see at the end of this game, Zebra having 5 points.
Can you?
No, not Zebra. Jesus, no, God, Cal. I can see at the end of this game, Cheetahs having 5 points and Zebra having 1.
That'll be an interesting match.
No, I mean in total.
All right. Okay. Okay.
I'd love it if that were to happen, actually, because it'd be a great
It'd be a
game.
high scoring
Yeah.
game, yeah.
No, I mean in total. I don't think Zebra will get anything out of this game except pain.
Yeah.
Although Bradley, there's always the great mystery about Michael Bradley, his quality as a coach, isn't there? In Ireland, anyway. Because of his familial connections, his achievements aren't really regarded
I
as.
think that's a bit harsh.
That's
though.
that's the point I'm
Like
going to make.
he was playing from such a bum hand that he was dealt with Connacht.
No, that's the point I'm going to make.
And
I
Edinburgh.
think what a bit like Real Madrid in Franco Spain, you can tell how good they are by what they did outside of Spain. And Bradley's the same. If you look at his achievements outside of, the narrow confines of Irish rugby and its politics, he's actually done really, really well as a coach. He's been successful in Eastern Europe. He seems to be very popular in Zebre.
He brought them on he brought Connacht on a couple of
Yeah.
runs, didn't he? In the
Yeah.
in the champion in the
Challenge
Cup.
Up until last November, the team he coached against New Zealand is still the best performance we ever put in against the All Blacks, or was the best performance we put in against the All Blacks. So, the guy obviously knows what he's doing. It's just the point I'm making is that he never gets the credit. I don't think he gets the credit he's due because of connections and stuff like that. People always say, "Oh, he only got that job because of he's the son-in-law and all that kind of stuff," which I don't think is fair because I think he's a good coach.
But like at that time, like now, the funding that Connacht have has been significantly bumped up. But at that time, and I've mentioned this a few times, Leinster were getting £1 million in sponsorship from Bank of Ireland per season. They were getting 100 grand
With 2 lollipops.
and 2 lollipops and a Super Saver account. But you know what I mean? That's the sort of, you're talking about 1/10 of the money just from your sponsorship, from your chest jersey sponsors. Not to mention that basically probably 2/3 or maybe half the Leinster squad and the Munster squad salaries were paid by the IRFU. But even though that they're all getting a subvention from the from central funds from the union, Connacht all had to go to pay their squad of 35 players.
And as soon as they got a good player, he was whipped. off.
They benefited the other way too,
Oh,
which
they
is
did,
quite
yeah.
often
Yeah.
ignored.
They got young players like Sean Cronin, for example, is a class. I mean, you saw that game against Shannon, or for Shannon in the All Ireland League final, and he looked like he was going to be a superstar. He went to Connacht.
He scored a try not dissimilar to one he scored on Friday night.
So I mean that worked in there. Ian Keatley put in a number of good years there. But then the other thing is Flannery was there. They've had a lot of good players. The other side of it is that they do lose them. I mean, they lost Flannery, they lost Birch, they lost.
But it was policy. Like even if you read Jackman's book, he's talking about O'Sullivan ringing him up and saying, first thing you got to do is get a pro contract. So you went to Connacht. Then he says, if you want to progress your career, get out of Connacht and get to one of the three big provinces. So move to Leinster. You know, if you want
He
to
did, and he got his few caps.
Yeah, exactly. But like that was coming from the national coach. So if that's
And a Connacht man.
if that's the
Or Connacht. Well, he is to all intents
They
and
blow in
purposes.
Connacht, man.
Aye, aye,
but
he's-
if that is coming down, if that's the official policy, they're always going to be behind the,
Oh, yeah,
the eight
yeah.
ball.
I think that's gone now.
It is gone now, yeah.
And you can see that
And you could see
because-
it even 2
yeah,
years ago.
The quality of the coaches that are in place in the province and the quality of players that are still. I mean, if you want proof that Connacht aren't been pillaged, is the fact that the two that everyone would want, Ultan Dillane and Bundy Aki, are
Yeah.
still there. I would have put money on Munster making away with them on their dancers, you know. But now they're still there, you know.
Yeah.
Well, as any Munster fan, I'll tell you, Ultan Dillane is from Tralee.
Yeah.
So
I think I
wouldn't be stealing, they say.
for the greater good of Irish rugby, I really wish that Connacht had held on to Robbie Henshaw. Like, obviously he's a fine player, and we've ended up with him, and I hope he wins loads of medals and cups in
Glad to
Leinster.
have him now he's
but
here, yeah,
but
absolutely.
I do think for the greater good of Irish rugby and for developing, granted another team that's not my team, but I still think for the benefit of developing something that was really, really starting to grow, they should have kept him there, and they should have done their best to try and keep that big second row that went to France as well.
Yeah, Ali Muldowney, yeah.
Muldowney, yeah.
The big problem Connacht have to do is they have to start getting a pattern, or not a pattern, of continuous qualification for the top European
Yeah.
competition off their own bat. If they do that, then they find it easier to keep players, and they find it easier
Yeah.
to sell themselves to other players in other provinces.
Just
Ian Madigan would have been a nice touch as well.
Yeah,
Get him in
I
there.
can't.
Evan Marmion.
He seemed to be issuing a "please come and get me," and
Yeah.
nobody ever came and
They
got
didn't.
him.
Yeah.
You know, because he would have suited Pat Lamb's
Well, maybe
UA style.
maybe did go and get him, and he said, "Oh well, sorry lads, 500-600 grand
It's a lot of money.
sterling was a lot of money when he signed it.
Yeah.
It's just lost
10% less now.
15%.
Did you see? As an aside, I saw the ticket prices for the match against the Kings. It's 50 rand for a good seat in the stand, which
So
works out
10
at
much of that.
€3.23.
Wow.
What?
They made a huge mistake when I went down to the Lions in 09, and they made a massive mistake. They overpriced. They basically put the prices up that none of the local South Africans, even well-heeled South Africans, couldn't afford to go. And the attendances were very, very poor for all the Lions matches. Obviously, there was, as it was getting closer to the Test matches, more and more of the Lions fans were coming down from Britain and Ireland. But the earlier rounds of matches, the stadiums were half full because the locals couldn't afford to go. And I think I picked up a ticket for the match in Port Elizabeth, just on Ticketmaster the morning of the match, and I got it for probably about €40. But like €40 to someone from Ireland is not that expensive, but €40 down in South Africa
Big
is
money.
quite a lot.
I always remember the story about. Ollie LaRue. He used to. He always tried to explain to people that in lots of ways South Africa is a third world country. I mean, he came up and he says the money I earn here is huge, but he says I go into a bar and guys spend €4 on a coffee, and he says I do that sum in my head, and I just think you're paying that much money for a coffee. That's like a week's wage for some people in South Africa.
It's a bit crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, boys, what about your predictions for our games down in the two matches that we play down in South Africa?
I'd say I'm going to say we'll beat the Kings, and I have no idea what's going to happen in the second one because it'll depend how badly beaten up we get by the Kings.
Yeah, and the high felt and the effects on 60 minutes. I think we're going to take 9 points. I think we're going to take 5 the first week, and I'm hoping we're going to stumble.
I could see that happen.
I'm hoping we're going to stumble to a 4-pointer, and that we can stay alive long enough. Like we do have the players to do it.
Just in terms of, it was a question we got asked last week and we never got a chance to get to it. Andrew Byrne asked. Now it has become overtaken by events, but his question was: with Rob Kearney back fit and James Lowe arriving soon, we seem to be well stocked with back three players. Do you guys see a future for Issa Nasiwa wearing the 12 jersey, or is it just a temporary measure until Henshaw and Ringrose are fit again?
Well, obviously it's until Henshaw and Ringrose are fit, because if the two of them are fit, he's not going to be playing 12.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, a week is a long time in politics. A week is an awful long time in rugby. All of a sudden, Rob Kearney is not fit. James Lowe is still not here and won't be here till at least the middle of October. So we're all of a sudden not really that well stocked. So Issa is definitely going to play 12 until. Well, Noel Reid may come back. So it depends. Issa is probably could be needed in the back three.
Yeah.
You know, especially in the second game in South Africa.
The question is, are you going to put Jordan Larmour in a fullback on the high veld on a pitch that's like tarmac, with
I'd say they're hoping Dave Kearney's going to last 2 games.
with a South African pack bearing down on you like wildebeest,
Well, neither of the packs are too scary though, are they? They're all about the backs.
You never know what they might dig
They
up.
have trusted him though.
They're giving it a start.
Like
yeah,
they
yeah.
have kind of
Yeah.
they kind of like when I was watching the replay I just watched the second half after I came home from work
Because you
tonight.
don't hate yourself as much as
Yeah,
Gavin
no,
Coombs hates himself.
I couldn't watch the first half again, but I just watched the second half when they came in tonight, and as I was watching it, and especially the last 10 minutes of it, when we were really throwing caution to the wind and going for that, it just reminded me of the team from about 10 years ago, when it was just coming, when you had the likes of Horgan and Hickey and O'Driscoll and Darcy, when they were just coming
Hickey
into
had already retired. Believe it or not, Hickey had already retired. Retired in 06.
Died in 07.
07.
07, sorry.
Anyway, but what I mean is that just say the match down in Toulouse, where there was just this willingness when it was on to go for it, and I just saw that a little glimpse of it. It just reminded me. Yet these players are still very young, and one part of Levy's interview, which I loved, he said, "This is our team now. We haven't gone in and inherited a team." And I remember seeing an article a few years ago from when Sexton came back from France, and he said, like, this is my team now, and I want this team to be my team now, because I kind of fell into the 09 team, and it was even in the 11 team, he was only kind of
the man who nearly won the game on his own.
Well, he did, but he didn't feel it that it was his team.
There
That was O'Driscoll's
there were bigger
team.
Yeah.
That was O'Driscoll's team. Then the next year, it was still kind of O'Driscoll's team and Heaslip's team. But now he said he wanted the team to be almost built around him. And
Nice if he showed up for a match then.
but like these young kids now are starting to take ownership, and as opposed to say, the criticism that Shane Jennings had a couple of seasons ago when he said, these lads are walking around with 3 stars on their tracksuits and they've done nothing to deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
Now these fellas, okay, it's 4 years on since we won a title, but we have these young kids now that are got great talent, and they're starting to play. And last season, some of the rugby that we played was fantastic.
Well, one thing I'll say is it'll be almost unheard of in Leinster at any time in the last 10 years, or possibly more, that a first year academy, since Luke Fitzgerald, a first year academy guy would be starting week in, week out for Leinster. Like, Irish teams generally don't seem to promote, like, compared to even Welsh teams. Never mind Kiwis.
But look at last year, like they brought through.
They did.
They
did.
Like they've promoted
Jerry
fairly
Carberry
rapidly. Carberry, but even Van de Fleer.
I think
He got through the academy
O'Loughlin.
at least, though. This
I
guy is
think-
just literally.
I know.
think
He's
that
only out of school a couple.
the
of
guys
years
who have
ago.
the talent have always made the team. I mean, if you think about it, there wasn't too much holding back Fergus McFadden or Owen McNally or Owen O'Malley, was there? Really?
I think they got through the academy though, or they.
They might. I think they were.
They weren't in
I think
first
I
year.
think they upped and downed. And there was also, remember, there was a big difference between the strength and conditioning in Senior Cup then and strength and conditioning in Senior Cup now.
That's true.
Guys,
what's his name? Brendan Mackin was promoted.
Brendan
early.
Mackin went in early. Andrew Conway went in early. Lots of forwards went in early. I mean, I think we, to a certain extent, for a period of time, we thought our academy was a bit better than it actually was, in terms of there were guys in there who we were waiting for who weren't actually good enough, and we were kind of fooled by British and Irish Cup wins.
But there was a lot of guys that were. They get B&I Cup maybe in first year academy. They wouldn't get a senior cap. I mean, look at the like of Adam Byrne, like who was capped at 18,
yeah.
but that was it. Okay, he had injury issues. Like, you didn't see guys getting a run in the team, and Jordan Larmour is now getting a run in the team. That's that says a couple of things. It says A, obviously the guy is hugely talented. It says B, that we're not as reluctant. Maybe it's Lancaster's influence.
Or maybe the talent is there, which it hasn't been
Or similarly, I mean,
That's true.
6 or 7 years.
you could say the same thing about Ringrose. You know, he got his chance now. You know, he got capped
He came up pretty
in the
quick
Autumn
too, yeah.
International last season. I know O'Loughlin is a couple of years older, but he had his injury problems. But like, he came from literally nowhere. Do you know, he was way off. If there was going to be like last September, if you're going to name the starting 15 for Leinster in the European Cup
Oh, yeah, he wasn't
semi-final,
in it. Yeah.
nowhere near it. Then he goes on tour with Ireland. Okay, admittedly it was 5 lines, but only 5 lines.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not that there was
Half the squad missing.
exactly. You know, he gets called up for the Ireland team.
Only
And he gets a
5 from
captain.
Leinster.
Yeah, I think
Right.
I think if you look back at it, the talented guys always did make it through. Even
just not as quick as I would
even
say.
early enough.
No.
Yeah, it's true.
But there was a very like, if you think of where rugby used to be from in Ireland, it was from ultra conservatives. You know, you had like, that's who were picking the teams. Look, if you look where they
true.
where they came from, you know what I mean? Where you had fairly, let's say,
Provincial wrangling over
but
the
even,
Irish
even
team.
even professional classes, you know, they were lawyers, accountants, doctors, like quite conservative professions. They were the ones who were the selectors. Then fast forward, it's gone pro. Lancaster and Cullen don't give a damn where a kid is from, what is, you know, if he's got the ability to get on a team and there's a fella, if Rob Carney's injured or not playing well, he's jumping ahead of him.
Rugby is actually quite radical and quite progressive. Modern professional rugby in Ireland, and the senior cup schools are equally as radical and progressive in their things. Because people say there's too much. The school system actually does a great job of, like, Leinster doesn't have to scout out the talent in the provinces because the school system does it and gives them all scholarships. You know, Joey Carberry came from Athy into Blackrock, you know, and was presented. The school system does a very good job of presenting fully formed proto-professionals to the Leinster Academy. So you find now you got a situation where guys can be picked almost out of the school system and brought in. I mean, Taylor Doris, for example, got a run out in the pre-season.
That's right, yeah.
You know, you see guys like Will O'Connor's, Max Deegan. Now he's been in the academy a year or two, but it's easier now to bring guys in straight away because they're at the physical level that they need to be. I mean, you met Luke Fitzgerald when he was in 6th year, and he was a willowy kid. I mean, he was tall and he was big for his age, but he was still a willowy kid. And then 6 months later, you see the size of him, because the difference between strength and conditioning in the schools and strength and conditioning in Leinster was massive. Now it's not. Now the schools are, maybe they mightn't have the budgets that Leinster Rugby have, although some of them probably do, but their sports science and all that is just as progressive and just as,
Also,
as advanced.
kids probably see a career path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And instead of swatting their ass off to become a dentist, a lawyer, an IT professional, whatever, you know, they're kind of saying, well, I'm pretty good at rugby, but if I want to be a professional rugby player, I've got to get to a certain physical shape to make it, you know?
Yeah, well, I don't know what is in my head, but it's like that Irish rugby it's the same kind of mindset that wants to rest our players all the time and keep them, you know, in terms of the Irish team.
But that's why Devon Toner has 200 caps for Leinster and has a 12-year career.
That's fine. I'm
I'm
not saying it's bad or good. All I'm saying is it's the same kind of a mindset that keeps kids in the academy and playing AIL and stuff and not giving them a break in the senior team. It's the same kind of. Conservative is probably the wrong word for it, but you know that they
risk averse is probably a better phrase.
Risk averse is a good word for it. Whereas now, you know, maybe we're starting to see a breakthrough in the last couple of years of players just been given their, and also as well the just the pure amount of
But like Leinster
Leinster
started 50 or played 56 players last season,
Yeah.
and they like that's not a
And they could
once
play
off.
more this year.
They do that practically every year. It's in the late 40s, early 50s number of players that they use.
Yeah,
So-
they give a guy a cap against Cardiff for 20 minutes and then he won't be seen again for 6 months. Like, this guy is playing. He played 2 pre-season friendlies and 2
I
first team games, and he'll probably be on tour
I
as
don't
well.
think it's. I think it's about just the way that the the sport is developing. 5 years ago, the Leinster Academy got its about 5 years ago, got its HETAC certification, which meant it was a third level thing. And I said at the time, in 10 years' time, the Leinster Academy will be looking to be a post-junior cert educational institution. And I think that's what's going to happen next. Because that's the way the younger you get them in, you get loads of people in at the bottom, and you feed them up into the pyramid at the top. So if you get them in, if you get
the mincing machine.
Yeah, so if you can control more of them, it's like the Scarf's animation for
Pink
on
Floyd.
the wall.
Yeah.
If you can get more in at the bottom and control them more closely, then you have more of what you want at the top. And I think
Schools
that
are very reluctant to let go.
schools are very
massive-
reluctant,
massive
but
to
I
say,
think
yeah.
I think it will happen. It's going to be a big battle, but I think it will happen.
Like they hold and they have the players, inverted commas, registration. A kid who plays in school can't play for a club.
Oh yeah. What I'm thinking is that the Leinster Academy will become a school. That's what I'm saying. It'll become a second level school, like the football academies in the UK are. They are accredited educational institutions.
It mightn't be 10 years, it might be 20 or 30 years down the road, but yeah, it possibly could go down
Yeah,
that
I think
road.
that because that's the model for professional sport in Europe.
Well, anyway, boys, interesting as ever, and thanks very much for watching. Cheers.